The Lost Heir. Episode 2. The Rise of the Ungrateful Slave. Back in Oko village, the sickness continued to spread like wildfire through dry grass. The once lively village had turned into a place of mourning. Compounds that used to echo with songs and laughter were now quiet. Doors remained shut. Smoke no longer rose from many kitchens. People whispered prayers more often than they spoke to each other. Within a short time, the terrible disease had claimed the lives of many villagers. Strong hunters, market women, farmers, children, even elders who had lived long enough to see many seasons could not escape its grip. The village that once thrived with life had become a shadow of itself. Among the survivors was a man who had once lived his life in the shadow of another. His name was Obey. Years before the tragedy, Obey had been one of the many slaves working on Allah's vast farmland. He was strong, hard-working, and silent. Every morning before sunrise, he joined the other workers heading into the cocoa fields. They cleared weeds, harvested cocoa pods, carried heavy baskets under the hot sun. Their sweat watered the very soil that made Allah rich. Obey had lived like that for years, watching the wealth around him, working on land that would never belong to him. But fate had quietly turned the wheel. The deadly disease had wiped out many villagers, including the master of the land himself. When word eventually reached Oko that Allah had fled the village with his son and never returned, people assumed the worst. No one had seen him again. No one knew his fate. And slowly, people began to believe that the wealthy farmer had died somewhere far away. With most of the village gone and no clear heir present, something remarkable happened. The vast farmland of Allah had no master. And in times of chaos, those who remain often claim what others leave behind. Obey was among the few strong men left alive. He knew the land better than anyone. He had worked every section of the farm. He knew where the cocoa trees grew best. He knew the fertile soil and the hidden water streams. So gradually, without ceremony and without challenge, Obey took control of the land. At first, some villagers believed this might not be a bad thing. After all, Obey had been there from the beginning. He knew the work. Perhaps he would continue the farming. Perhaps he would even treat people fairly. But they were wrong. Very wrong. Power has a way of revealing what already lives inside a man's heart. And in Obey's heart lived bitterness. For many years, he had watched others live comfortably while he labored like an animal. Even though Allah had not been known as a cruel master, Obey's heart still carried resentment. And now, for the first time in his life, he had power.
All right, let's begin. Harvest the ripe pods. Place them in the baskets. Walk steadily.
He controlled the land. He controlled the harvest. He controlled the wealth. But instead of gratitude, his heart grew darker. He became suspicious of everyone. He trusted no one. He began ruling the farm with a cold and ruthless hand. Anyone caught stealing cocoa pods from his plantation faced severe punishment. At first, he ordered whippings. Later, his cruelty grew worse. He began killing those he accused of theft. Some villagers whispered that he had become worse than any master they had known. People feared walking near the cocoa farms. Even children avoided the paths that passed through the plantations. But Obey did not care. His wealth continued to grow. With fewer villagers left alive, he expanded his control over more land. Cocoa harvests filled his barns. Palm oil drums stacked inside his storage houses. Money flowed into his hands from traders who came from distant towns. And with every passing year, Obey grew richer. But the richer he became, the harder his heart turned. If a hungry traveler asked him for food, he chased them away. If a widow begged for help, he closed his gate. If a struggling farmer needed assistance, he refused. The villagers began to whisper among themselves. Allah was wealthy, but his heart was not like this. Obey's farm grows, but kindness does not grow with it. But nobody dared challenge him. Because everyone knew what happened to those who crossed his path. While Obey lived in growing wealth in Oko village, destiny was quietly unfolding elsewhere. Far away in a neighboring village, the small boy who once wandered alone beside a forest path had been found. The child had walked for hours after his father died. Hungry. Afraid. Crying for someone who would never answer again. Eventually, the boy stumbled into a small village at the edge of the forest. Exhausted and weak, he collapsed near the entrance of the village market. It was there that an old woman found him. Her name was Mama Saad. She was known in the village as a kind widow who lived alone in a small mud house near the river. Mama Saad had no children of her own. Her husband had died many years earlier. She survived by farming a small piece of land and selling vegetables in the market. When she saw the boy lying weak and dusty on the ground, something in her heart moved. She lifted him gently. "Child, where are your parents?" she asked softly. But the boy only cried. He was too young to explain anything. He did not know where he had come from. He did not know the name of his village. All he knew was that his father had fallen and never stood again. Mama Saad could not abandon him. So she took him home. She bathed him, fed him warm food, and allowed him to sleep on a mat inside her small house. Days passed. The boy slowly regained strength. But he never spoke about where he came from. Perhaps he had forgotten. Perhaps the memories were too painful. Eventually, Mama Saad made a decision. "If the gods brought you to my doorstep," she said one evening, "then you are my child now." And from that day, the boy became her son. She gave him a new name. Ade. Life with Mama Saad was not easy. Unlike the wealthy compound where he had once been born, this new home was small and humble. They woke up early each morning to work on their little farm. They planted cassava, corn, vegetables. Ade learned to farm from a young age. He carried water from the river. He helped clear weeds. He followed Mama Saad to the market to sell their produce. They did not have much. But they had peace. And most importantly, Mama Saad taught him something greater than wealth. She taught him kindness. Whenever a hungry traveler passed through the village, she shared food. Whenever a neighbor fell sick, she helped. Ade watched everything. And slowly, those lessons shaped his heart. He grew into a hard-working young man. Tall. Strong. Quiet. Just like the father he barely remembered. But destiny had a strange plan waiting for him. A plan buried deep in the soil. A plan that would soon connect his life back to Oko village. Back to the land that once belonged to his father. And back to the man who had taken everything. Because somewhere beneath the earth, a hidden treasure waited to be found. To be continued.